Hey everybody, it is Josh from Tabletop Journeys, here known as Dr. Homebrew, back to talk about another chapter of Keys from the Golden Vault. We're going to be talking about the 5th mission, Tockworks, Clockworks, today. And before I kind of get into the mission proper, a couple of things to say right up front. So the first thing is that in my last episode about Prisoner 13, I had mentioned that I thought that Prisoner 13 and this mission went well together. You will find I will not talk about that today because I realized after reading my notes that it was Prisoner 13 and the next mission, the other level 5 mission in the book, that I thought went well together. So we're not going to be talking about that this time around. Sorry if you were looking forward to that. The next one will be out shortly. The second thing is that I have kind of realized that the rubric that I was using to kind of compare and contrast all of these missions wasn't actually doing its job very well. It really wasn't comparing and contrasting. It did do well to sort of highlight the elements that I thought were most useful and that could be most lifted, but I think honestly that can be done better by kind of distilling down my notes into readable bullet points rather than try to give it some false score. So I'm going to abandon the rubric for this video, see how it works out, and if it works out, probably go back and re-record the first few to go ahead and kind of really list out the things that I think. But I would love to go ahead and hear some feedback on whether or not you prefer the rubric or not, or whatever makes most sense to you guys. I'm not sure that it's totally working to go ahead and as a source of comparison, but if it's working for you, I am happy to go back to it. So let's go ahead and dive into the mission first of all. So again, we're talking about Tockworks, Clockworks. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about was one of the things I think that's best or most easily lifted into one of your games, and that is how this mission sort of juxtaposes a dark tone with a light setting. At the end of the day, you are dealing with fun characters, kind of halfling-inspired characters, in the mission itself, but also in this really kind of dark, gritty, almost Eberron-style Underdark adventure. And that's a really interesting juxtaposition because it takes a theme and kind of interposes a little bit of lightness to it in a way that is disconcerting and sort of cool in that way. So storytellers out there, maybe this isn't something that you want to go ahead and lift directly from the mission, but definitely something that you want to think about when you're putting together missions. How do I take emotions and themes and kind of character concepts that are on the opposite side of a spectrum from one another and merge them in together? Dark tone, but a light setting, that kind of thing. So that was the first thing I thought was very, very cool, just kind of overall the way that it was written. The second thing was that, and this is going to be a little bit of a criticism here, random tables that shouldn't be random, right? There is a roll table in here right at the very beginning that is talking about a list of options about how you can go ahead and meet one of the NPCs. And the thing that really got me is that, so it's a D12 roll table. Options 7 through 12 are one option, right? And it's also super important that you meet the NPC in that way, or else it kind of sets everything off from there. So again, when you're talking about plot construction and everything like that, this is a trap that I have certainly fallen into before as a storyteller. I ran into it a couple of sessions ago with Star Trek Preservations, where I did this collaborative world building thing where I wanted to go ahead, and it wasn't even so much necessarily collaborative world building, but it was the ship was on its way from point A to point B. I wanted certain things to happen, but I wanted the characters. I didn't know which of the characters was going to go ahead and do it, and I didn't really care, so I wanted to kind of give them some hooks to kind of build in there. And so I wrote this fabulously long kind of table of like options and sub-options and everything like that. Really overcomplicated it, only to go ahead and find out that the way the players were getting from point A to point B didn't actually fit onto the table at all, and I couldn't use it. So just be aware of the things that you actually want to randomize and the things that you don't want to randomize. And don't try to make something sound gamey or seem gamey and fun if it's actually really super important that the players do a particular thing, or at least go down a particular path or explore a particular thing. I will say that the NPC of Mayor Broadfoot is hysterical. I freaking love the way this character was written. I love the way that they are sort of bumbling, but not. I even like the fact that they used the commoner skill block for the mayor here, just to kind of like, to really set aside that Broadfoot is just a regular dude, right? Yeah, I really loved the way that was done. So, again, kind of the lesson here is that NPCs don't need to be overly complicated. They don't need to be overly powerful. They can just be regular characters. They don't have to be super characters. They don't even have to have any kind of player abilities or anything like that. They can be based on simple stat blocks that kind of give them a base set of abilities, but aren't exemplary in any way. Use mundane people more, because then that makes when you don't have mundane people, it makes them seem even bigger and badder and cooler. Something to think about. The map in particular, I thought, was really where this adventure shined. I thought that the map was complicated. I thought that it was varied. I thought it was big. It had a lot of really interesting things that make it very, very tricky to navigate for your players. And I think that, sometimes in this book in particular, the whole, well, I'm going to give you a scratch copy of my map, but really, and then there's the real map, and well, let's see how well they match, right? I thought in this one it made a lot of sense the way that they laid it out, because really what the sample scratch map laid out was, here are a couple of key areas that I think you should go to, and then here's the big transportation nexus that goes around here with a lot of information on how it works and how it could be exploited. So it really kind of zoomed in and zeroed in on a very key part of the map, but did not get lost in all of the things that could also be in there that the NPC ultimately did not think was important. And whether or not they are important or not is going to be up to how your players investigate it and kind of how your plot goes. But understand that the difference between the real map and the scratch map really just shows the NPC's bias on whether or not they think that it's important enough. Make your NPCs diverse. And this was an excellent way to go ahead and do that in this case, because the real map itself is fantabulous. And then the scratch map really kind of showcases what that NPC is thinking and what their goals are and what they really want to go ahead and have done. And I think that it's also really helped out by an excellent roll table versus the D12 roll table earlier in the mission. This D20 roll table that kind of highlights the multitude of buildings and areas that you can get to within this map was really, really, really well done, and really showed a depth and a diversity within the map that I think the players are going to feel. If you spend a lot of time kind of in this map and in the heat and with the machines and the clanking and the mining and the smoke and the everything, it is going to be so thematic, and stretching this part of the adventure out is going to make it feel like the slog that I think that it's supposed to be. This is not supposed to be a mission that you run through quickly, and when we get to the very end about the things that I think would inspire you to go ahead and bring this into your table, we'll talk about that one a little bit. I think that the other thing that was fantastic was, in general, the construction and the use of the foes in this mission. I thought that was fantastic. The stat blocks that are in here are really interesting and fun, especially if you're doing kind of like an Eberron-y, Clockworky type mission. But even, like I said, we talked about Mayor Broadfoot earlier, and the way that was used, the way that character is kind of built on a common stat block, right? Or even the Wandering Monster chart that is within it, there's a lot of really, really great stuff in here. So use these foes and everything like that to your advantage for sure. All right, here's the meat and potatoes of this mission here. So when should you use it? What are the three things that I think that you should kind of keep in mind if you're going to go ahead and bring this into your table? First thing, this mission takes time. This is not a 2-hour one-shot. This is maybe a 3-hour two-shot or a 4 to 5 hour mission. Take the time, because that's a really important part of this mission, is the length of time it's going to take to go ahead and make all these things happen. The setting, having it put into the Underdark, is going to be a really nice palate cleanser if you have reason to go there. So this is a fantastic mission if you're looking to go ahead and introduce some Underdark stuff, because again, it'll kind of give that kind of otherworldly character that maybe you're not going to see in your regular fantasy game, with a lot of like automatons and mechanized stuff and stuff like that. And then, as always, in terms of its variety, the mission itself, again, if you're playing kind of a traditional like sword and board fantasy type mission and you need something that's a little bit different and a little bit spicy, this is a fantastic mission to go ahead and drop in. So I really loved it. I think it's got a lot of utility. I think it's got a lot of use. Hope that you see it too. And tell me what you think about the new format. Tell me if you think that this makes a little bit more sense to go ahead and kind of lay out what I like about it other than the rubric. Love to go ahead and hear your thoughts down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you. We'll be back next week with the 6th mission in the book, which is actually the 2nd level 5 mission in the book. It's called Masterpiece Imbroglio, and I'm really looking forward to talking about that one and how it meshes with Prisoner 13, which we talked about last week. All right.